and welcome to my first official attempt at a vlog on this channel. I did do a try a chapter vlog, but I'm wanting to do more vlogs on my channel where I just take you along for part of a month and talk about the books that I'm reading and other things that are going on. So my main focus in this vlog is going to be working on books for the Back to Hogwarts Readathon and Shake-Timber. There may be some other books I get to this month, we will see. But for the most part, this video is going to be covering the last 3.5 weeks of the month of September. So I don't know how often I'll be updating, but I want to cover these readathons in one vlog. So that's what we're going to aim for. So I'll go over those real quick. But first, I want to say I went to Scooters today and got their maple bourbon blender, which is, I think they have 3 seasonal blends out right now, or 3 seasonal flavors out right now. And this is one of them. Now, I love maple. You give me maple, you give me cinnamon, you give me butterscotch, pretty much anything, especially coffee, and I'm going to at least try it. I'm not a big pumpkin person. I love pumpkin pie, but that's kind of the extent of my pumpkin enjoyment. So they had a maple bourbon, so I went ahead and got this, and I will say it is good, but it is definitely a different flavor having the bourbon mixed in with the maple. So I do like it. I don't know if I'm going to be ordering it as often as I normally order seasonal drinks, but I'm sure I will order it again during the fall season. Then I have 3 books I'm planning to start working on, or I'm already working on. 2 of them are for the Back to Hogwarts readathon. One of them is just one that I'm trying to get finished. So let's start with the one I'm trying to get finished. And I don't know how much I'll get to it in the next few days, but I do need to keep working on it, and that is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I started this one in May. I still haven't finished it. I'm a little ways into part 4. I think I'm about 6 or 7 chapters in, so I haven't made a huge dent, but I have at least started making some progress on it. Hopefully, I can keep making progress while working on some of these other books, but I will update you guys as I make significant progress on the book. I don't want to update every 1 or 2 chapters because there's really no point. And then for the Back to Hogwarts readathon, the book I've already started is the Aeneid by Virgil, and I'm buddy reading this with Dia from Novel Idea. So we've already gone through books 1 through 3. We're doing 3 books a week, so I need to get through 4 through 6 this week. So this one will be ongoing throughout the vlog. But as far as the first 3 books, I've really been enjoying it. The first book is Aeneas and his men arriving in Carthage and then meeting Dido and all of that. The second and third books are him telling the story about what happened in Troy and then what happened after they left Troy before they got to Carthage. So lots of backstory so far, but I think at this point we're about to move into the present of the story. And this is the part of the story I don't know much about. I know a little bit when it comes to Aeneas and Dido's relationship, but very little and pretty much nothing beyond that. So definitely interested in continuing to read this. And like I said, I've got 3 more books to get through by the end of this week. So I will be working on it periodically. And then the last book I still need to start. And it's also for the Back to Hogwarts readathon, but it's also due back to my library later this week. So I really need to get to it. If I don't have to renew it, I'd like to avoid that, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to. But that is The Red Queen by Philippa Gregory. And this is the last book I need to read in the Plantagenet and Tudor Court series. I think this is either the 2nd or 3rd book chronologically in the series. But it's the last one that I'm getting to because my reading's been all over the place. And whenever I get done with this book, I will do a series review for the entire series. And there I will explain the order in which I read the books and why I read them that way. But this is the last one I need to get to, and this one is about Margaret Beaufort, who is the mother of the man who would become King Henry VIII of England. From what I understand, this chronicles her early life, like her early marriage, raising her son, and then his uprising as he goes up against Richard III for the crown of England. So I know a lot of the stories surrounding this, the things that come before, the things that come after. So interested to see this one from a little bit closer perspective than we've gotten it so far. This is the main one I'm planning to work on for now. For the most part, I've discovered with books that it works okay to have one or two other books that I'm working on periodically, but only one book that I am consistently working on. So the Red Queen is going to be getting priority. A lot of times if I try to prioritize 2 or 3 books at a time, I don't end up making progress on any of them. So the Red Queen is going to get priority. The Aeneid will have second priority because it's only 3 books within a week. So it does have priority. I just don't need to get through it quite as fast. And then Words of Radiance is going to be the lower priority. It's going to be an as I get to it or as I need a break from something else kind of thing. The main thing with Words of Radiance is that I get it finished by the end of September. That is my primary goal. And then whenever I finish the Red Queen, I will pick up something else and I'll let you know what that will be at that point, because right now I'm not sure. So I think that's all I have for right now. It feels like a very long introduction to the vlog, but yeah, I'll take you along with me throughout the rest of the month and we'll just see how it goes. So everyone is in bed, so I realize I'm not talking as loud as I normally do, but I don't want to wake anyone up. However, I thought I would give a bit of an update before I actually head to bed. So first I want to talk about Words of Radiance, because I haven't talked about this book at all. All I've mentioned is that I'm reading it, I'm still reading it. That's about as far as we've gotten. So I did read a few more chapters tonight because I swear when I tell myself I need to work on this book, my brain immediately wants to work on anything but that book. So I was telling myself I need to take a break from Words of Radiance. The Red Queen needs to be my priority. And then because I want to make that my priority, all of a sudden I want to read Words of Radiance. Go figure. So I was enjoying this book for the most part. Through parts 1 and 2. It was really interesting seeing how things were going after all of the events from book 1. However, I will be honest, as I got partway into part 3, I was losing interest. And I don't know if I was just feeling burnt out on the story, if part 3 just wasn't as interesting, I'm not really sure. But yeah, that was a bit of a struggle. Now I'm in part 4 and I just want to keep reading. So I don't know. I will say the one big thing in this book, because so many people talk about how much they love Kaladin, and in this book I'm not loving Kaladin. There are things about him I still like, but there are decisions that he's making and things that he's doing that I really just want to question, what is he thinking? There's also decisions that Shallan is making that I want to ask her, what are you thinking? Dalinar is about the only one that I'm not having issues with in this book. So overall the book is going well. I will also say I'm enjoying Wit more as I see him. I wasn't enjoying him as much in book 1 until I got further into the book. I think it was just his sense of humor I didn't care for as much. But as it's getting further in the book and we're seeing more and more of him, I'm actually liking him more. We've had him show up twice, just in the part that I read today, so that's also making this part more enjoyable. And then I did eventually start the Red Queen. Let's scoot over a little bit. I've only a few chapters in. I'm about 40 pages in, I think. 43 pages. So, it's not a super long book, but I'm not very far into it yet. However, Reading this book from the perspective of Margaret Beaufort is reminding me why I detested her so much in The White Princess. I did not like having to deal with her in that book. I probably disliked her as much as Elizabeth did, and I'm not liking her anymore in this one. I think the biggest issue I have with her right now, because she is younger, at the point I'm at in the book, I think she's 13 years old, 12 or 13. But she keeps talking about, like, she's kind of comparing herself to Joan of Arc. She keeps talking about how she's been called by God and she spends all this time in prayer and she's so pious and all of these things. And it's very much an outward show. Like, she's so happy when she realizes that she has calluses on her knees from all the time she spends praying and saying, I have saint's knees. I'm not even 10 years old and I have saint's knees, because when the book starts, she's 9. There's a point where she and her mother are heading to London and she's talking about the groom that she has to follow. I think she has to sit behind him on the horse. But she says, it says, he winks at me as if I would be friendly to a man such as him. And I frown to remind him that I am a Beaufort and he is a nobody. And I was like, I have a tab on that. I have a tab on that spot. I said, oh no, she's not proud at all. And then she says things like, I am chosen by God himself to save England. I am to be Queen of England and sign my name Margaret Regina. Just all sorts of things. And then when she goes to see the king about her betrothal, her name gets called for her to go see the king. And she says, I have a moment, a really wonderful moment, when I feel everyone looking at me, and I remember to cast down my eyes and despise worldly vanity. So clearly this is an outward show. And the way that she acts feels very much in line with what we see in The White Princess when she's actually an adult. And even in one of the last chapters I read, she says about herself, I who am without sin and certainly without lust. And it's like, oh dear child, you are not without sin. At the very beginning of the book, it felt like possibly she is really this pious, but I'm like, if she is, something clearly changed, because I know what she's eventually going to be like. But as it got further into it, it's like, nope, nothing changed. She's always been this way, apparently, at least according to Philippa Gregory's books. So yeah, she believes herself chosen by God. She believes she sees visions from him, that she hears from him and Mary. And so she's like, I have a calling. I am to be this great person. I'm to save England the way Joan of Arc saved France. And that is very much her mentality, but it's a source of pride for her as well. So I am enjoying the book so far. I really do enjoy Philippa Gregory's writing style. I'm not going to enjoy reading from Margaret Beaufort's perspective, but I am enjoying the book itself. At this point, I am going to bed, so I will talk with you all later. Good morning, everyone. So it's been several days since I've actually done an update. Unfortunately, things were just really busy with school and other stuff, so I haven't had a ton of time to read. So that's part of the reason I haven't done an update, but also I've been a little too busy to do updates. But it's Sunday and I'm getting ready for church, but I had a little bit of time before we need to leave. So I thought I'd do a quick update before I finish The Red Queen, because I've made quite a bit of progress in this book. I'm currently, I think, about 250 pages in. 225, sorry. So I am enjoying the book, but let's talk about Margaret Beaufort. So I read the main book in this series that I remember reading about her is The White Princess, and you do not like her in that book. Now, I don't know anything about Margaret Beaufort historically speaking. Was she actually as pious as she is wanting to be in this book? I don't know. Or was she more like the way that she's portrayed in this series? I really have no idea. But I know in The White Princess, she is the mother-in-law you do not want to have. Everything is about her son. Everything is about his kingdom, his rule, and her doing whatever she can to give him whatever she thinks he should have. So she's really not someone that you want to have to deal with. And in this book, when it starts, she is 9 years old and she prays constantly. She wants to be a nun. She wants to start her own convent or abbey. And her mother says, no, your job is to get married and produce an heir, because her mother didn't have... She didn't have any boys with Margaret's father. I don't know if she had any with her stepfather, but it's Margaret's father who's a Beaufort, who is directly in the Lancaster line. At least if I recall correctly. I don't know. I know she has half-siblings, but I don't know if they're all girls or if they're just for some reason not in the Lancaster line, but Margaret is. So because there are no boys in line for the throne from her mother, she says, your job is to produce an heir. And so Margaret gets married off very young. And sorry if this is spoilery, but considering that this is part of history, a lot of this doesn't feel spoilery to me, especially as early on in the book as it is. But she does get married. She does give birth to a son, and he will eventually be Henry VII of England. And if you know anything about the War of the Roses, you probably know how that came about, but he will eventually be Henry VII of England. However, like I said, in this book, she's portrayed as she's very pious. She wants to start her own convent or abbey. She doesn't want to get married, but her mom says that is her job. So she's not happy with her lot in life. But this is why I say I don't know about Margaret Beaufort in real life, because in this book, it's very much portrayed as, I'm praying all the time and I'm doing all of these things, but I want to be recognized for doing these things. And when people don't notice that she's praying a lot, and she says that God speaks to her and Mary speaks to her, and when people don't acknowledge that, she gets very frustrated. So I don't know in real life if she actually was a very religious woman and was actually humble, or if she's more like the way she's portrayed in this book, where she at least says she wants to be very religious, very pious, very humble, but she isn't. I don't know. The biggest thing is that she very much admires Joan of Arc, and she basically wants to be Joan of Arc in England. However, her getting married, having a son, all of those things means that she's not going to have the role that she wants to have. I'm very much not a fan of, like I said, of Margaret's character. I am enjoying the book. I'm enjoying the story, but she is just a very vain person for someone who acts like she isn't. Like I said, she believes that God is speaking to her, that Mary is speaking to her. Again, how much of this was actually happening in real history, I don't know. But that's what she believes in the story. So just to give you a couple examples of her thought process, there's a point when she's talking to someone and he tells her something and she goes, how do you know what to do? Does God tell you? And then in the narration that follows, she says, I think it most unlikely that God would speak to this man, whose skin is very freckled. And I'm like, what does the fact that his skin is freckled have to do with anything? So yeah, that one was very strange. And I know there's quotes about her vanity when it comes to her religion and the fact that she prays all the time. Like I said, I remember her complaining that I think it's after she gets married, that nobody notices that she prays all the time, that she fasts, that she does all of these things, and she's very frustrated that people don't notice. And there is also a point where she feels like, I think it's because she feels like she stops hearing from God, that she gets frustrated because she's like, I don't understand. I'm not a vain or whatever person like these people. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Because your attitude and your thoughts would say otherwise. And she basically acts like, I'm not hearing from God, but I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm like, you don't really have, your heart is not in the right place. In this book, the way she's portrayed, her heart is not in the right place when it comes to her faith. And so it's like, no, in this case, in this book anyway, you very much are in the wrong. You just don't seem to realize that. So, like I said, I am enjoying the story, but Margaret Beaufort is a trip. So at the point that I'm at, I'll go ahead and discuss spoilers a little bit. Like I said, it's history, so I'm like, it's not completely spoilers. You could look this up and find this out. But just to give you guys an idea of where I'm at, the chapter I'm starting on is 1482. And the chapters aren't numbered. All I have are years. But I'm to the point 10 years after she marries her third husband. So, that's where I'm at in here. I have no idea how far this book is going to go. I don't know if it's going to cover things that are discussed in The White Princess or not. We will just see. So, but the biggest thing is I'm hoping by finishing out this series that any holes I have in the story that I've read thus far will finally be filled. And I'll know the rest of the story at least a little bit better. And I know with this series that Philippa Gregory has taken creative license because she's mentioned before that there are some things she writes about that people aren't sure. Did it happen this way? Did it happen this way? Did a person do this for this reason or this reason? And there's things that we just don't know. And so what she does is she picks one of those options and says, I'm just going to run with that throughout the entire series. So the way people are portrayed might be how they actually were, might not be how they actually were. And in some cases, we don't know. I don't know if we know any better with Margaret Beaufort or not, but this is how she's portrayed here. And then I have made progress with the Aeneid by Virgil. I'm halfway through the book now. I read books 4 through 6 this week, which Dia and I are buddy reading this together, so we're doing 3 books a week. That's all I needed to read last week, so I'll have to get 3 more read this week. But I'm enjoying the story so far, but I have officially hit the point where I know nothing else about this story. I think I basically knew the story up through book 4. I think that was all I read in college. So at this point, I really don't know anything else. So it's going to be interesting seeing how the rest of this story plays out. And unfortunately, I have not made any more progress in Words of Radiance. I've been busy enough with other things. I was doing good getting progress in The Red Queen and the Aeneid, so I would like to try to make some progress in Words of Radiance this week. I don't know how much, but I'd at least like to try to get some progress made in that book. So we'll see. I have been doing physical reading, audiobook, tandem reading. I've been doing a combination of all those things with Words of Radiance. So if nothing else, if I can just pull up the audiobook at some point and listen to some of it, that would be the main thing. But that is all I have for right now. I need to get ready to go to church, so I will talk with you later. So it's night, kids are in bed, but I need to talk about this book. So Margaret is just, I don't understand Margaret sometimes. So, and yes, that's pretty much what this vlog is going to be about, is Margaret as a character, because a lot of this story I already know, or at least have an idea about, but it's getting to see Margaret herself, at least from Philippa Gregory's perspective. So this is going to be spoilery. I will have timestamps down below if you don't want to be spoiled for any of this. Mostly I'm just talking about Margaret's viewpoint about things, but I may have to talk about what's happening in the book just to let you know where I am in the story. So you can skip ahead if you don't want to be spoiled, or there will be an image up here if you would rather just mute the video through this section. So literally the first page I started reading tonight. Margaret is talking about when she was presented to King Edward and Queen Elizabeth in, I'm assuming probably in the first year that she was married to Lord Stanley. And I'm just going to read the paragraph. She says, "I was surprised to find I was more nervous than when I went to court to meet a real monarch," meaning Queen Margaret of Anjou, who was the wife of Henry VI. And she met her when she was, I think, 12 or 13. She, meaning Elizabeth, was nothing but the widow of a country squire. But this usurping queen had dominated my life, and her fortunes have risen unstoppably while mine have struggled. We have been on opposite sides of fortune's wheel, and she has risen and risen while I have fallen. She has overshadowed me. She has lived in the palaces that should have been my homes, and she has worn a crown that should have been mine. And I read that and I'm just like, what are you on about, Margaret? Margaret was not going to be married to Henry VI. Henry VI was older, like her grandfather's age. It's not like she would have ever been married to him. Or maybe I shouldn't say her grandfather. He's at least her father's age, if not her grandfather's age. It's unlikely she would have been betrothed to King Henry's son. While Henry VI was still on the throne, she was betrothed and married to Edmund Tudor, who is a relation of Henry VI, but not his son. And I'm trying to remember now, after Edmund died, if I almost feel like her betrothal to Henry Stafford came while Henry VI was still on the throne, or while he was still technically considered king. Edward may have been fighting for the throne, but I'm pretty sure Edward wasn't on the throne yet. So, and I realize Henry VI's son is very young. Like, he's the age of her son. So, she never would have been married to him. And even if her son did become king, she would never have worn the crowns. The only thing I can think she's referring to is she's made comment that it should have been her who had been married to Edward. Like, if anybody should have married him, it should have been her, and she should be sitting on the throne now that he's king. But she doesn't even want him to be king. You know, she calls him a traitor and a usurper throughout the entire book. Like, she does not like Edward. So I'm like, you never would have been okay with being married to him if he was going after the throne of England. And yet she's basically saying, it should be me up there. I should be married to him. You hate this man. I don't understand her thought process, because it's like, as mother of the king, if her son Henry was on the throne, she would not be wearing these crown jewels, and she would have hated being married to Edward if she had been his wife because he would have dethroned her king. So, I don't know. Her logic makes no sense, in my opinion. And at this point, she's supposed to be 38, 39. So it's not like she's a teenager anymore either. But then in the next chapter, her current husband, Lord Stanley, makes a very good point. He talks about that they both want wealth and power. That's what they're both after. And she says, I am guided by God. And he goes, yes, because you think God wants your son to be king of England. I don't think your God has ever advised you otherwise. You hear only what you want. He only ever commands your preferences. And she goes, how dare you? I have lived my life in his service. And her husband says, he always tells you to strive for power and wealth. Are you quite sure it is not your own voice that you hear, speaking through the earthquake, wind, and fire? And my thought was just, thank you, Lord Stanley, for finally saying what a lot of us reading this book are probably thinking. Because, yeah, I'm like, sorry, I just shook the table. It's just, she always hears or always feels led like her son is supposed to be king and she's supposed to be, you know, either a high-ranking noble or she's supposed to be queen or the mother of the king or something. And I agree with him. That's all she ever hears is more power, more wealth to you. You should have more money. You should have more lands. You should have higher ranking. But this is what she wants. And so I appreciate that there's finally someone in her life who's willing to tell her like it is. Not that she listens, but I'm glad there's finally someone in here who's just bluntly honest with her. So, sorry, just had to share that before I moved on. But, yeah. I wish this had put Margaret in her place, and we didn't have the Margaret Beaufort of The White Princess, but unfortunately, it does not. So I have a bit of a reading update, and then I have a couple other things I want to talk about as well. So reading update first. So last night I finished The Red Queen by Philippa Gregory, and overall I really enjoyed the book. I know so far in this vlog, pretty much all I've talked about with this book is it's just me ranting about Margaret Beaufort. She's not a very likable character. She really isn't, at least in this series. And for the most part, a lot of it was me just reading about the thoughts in her head and going, do you understand how vain of a person you really are? And kind of laughing about some of it. But I will be honest, as it got towards the end, I did start getting very frustrated with her. So I'm going to read a couple of quotes real quick. This will be the last spoilery part for this book in the vlog. So if you don't want to be spoiled, again, I'll have timestamps down below and you can skip over it, or I'll have a symbol up here on the screen and you can mute the video until it goes away. But, I mean, I literally have 3 tabs on the page. So, obviously this is pretty late in the book. And this is after Elizabeth Woodville, the former Queen Elizabeth, Edward IV's wife, has come out of sanctuary at Westminster Abbey, and Margaret's just complaining about her. She says, "The Queen is, as she always has been, steeped in vanity and lives only for her own comfort and pleasure. No surprise to me at all that she should settle for a handsome manor and, no doubt, a good pension and a pleasant livelihood. She cannot be grieving for her boys at all, if she will take her freedom from the hands of their murderer." And sorry if I shifted a little, I had to go take care of something with the kids. But the note I wrote was literally, "Oh, shut up. If this was you, you would have done the same thing and said God provided for you." Because that's really been the big thing throughout the entire book, is every time she's brought low, she's like, it has to be something evil working against me, or it's the fault of this or that person. And if she finds a way to elevate herself from where she's at or do better, then it must be ordained by God, and it must be God providing for me. So if she was in Elizabeth Woodville's case, she would have taken the agreement too and said, this will at least provide me a way to be brought up to where I'm supposed to be, and it must be something that God's providing. And then, let's see. She says, "Though Elizabeth led a rebellion in which good men died and which cost me everything, it seems that she is to get off scot-free." And she doesn't specifically say who she's complaining about. Is she complaining that things happen to her and Richard is letting her off scot-free? Or is she complaining that God seems to be letting her off scot-free? I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's just constantly complaining when, all these bad things have happened to me, but nobody's getting punished for them. And I'm like, nobody else cares about you. You're the only one who cares this much about you, which could really be said of any of us. We care more about ourselves than anybody else does. But in her case, she can't recognize that a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. And then she says, "God cannot really want these women to lead peaceful, happy lives while my son is in exile. It cannot be his will. He must want justice. He must want to see them punished. He must want to see their downfall. He must long for the burning of the brand. He must desire the scent of the smoke of their sacrifice. And God knows I would be his willing instrument if he would just put the weapon in my obedient hand." And my comment on this one was, God's will is not our will, and we can't force it on him. Because it was a comment made early in the book, which I mentioned in one of the previous updates, that her husband says, basically, you think your will is God's will. And it's like, that's exactly what it is. She thinks whatever she wants, this must be what God wants. And she treats Elizabeth Woodville and her daughters in the exact same way. That if she wants them brought low, that must be what God wants too. So, yeah, her view of God, her view of religion, as it's portrayed in this book, is very skewed. And yes, by the time I got to that point in the book, I was getting very frustrated with her because she can't see the hypocrisy in her views. That anytime she finds a way to rise above a situation, she thinks God is providing it. But when it happens to somebody she doesn't like, it must be witchcraft, or it must be, just, I guess, human sin. It's it's never because it's something that God would want it. There's no way God could want this. And she was finally just getting to the point of making me angry. But the book as a whole is really good. And this was definitely the missing piece of the puzzle that I needed. Because what I was missing, for the most part, was how everything worked out, that Henry, who would be Henry VII, was able... how it was that he wasn't in England to begin with. How... because I knew he came over to England from France when he led this rebellion. Or uprising, or whatever you want to call it. But how was it he ended up in France? How did he come back over from France? How did all of that work together to lead to this uprising? That was the piece that I was missing. So I am very thankful to finally have all of those pieces in place. And when it was the parts of the book where she was just talking about these are the things going on in the country, I really enjoyed those parts. It was all the stuff to do with her personal need for vengeance and all of this that I did not... either I found funny because it's like, you say you're not a vain person, but this clearly shows that you are, or I was getting aggravated with her. It is a really good book. It is one of the better books in the Plantagenet part of the series, because that's the part of the series I've been more hit or miss on. And I am glad to finally have this series done. I finally counted up the number of books in the series. There are 15 books in this series. And I started it in 2013. So it's been a long time coming. All right. And then I have made some more progress in the Aeneid, but I lost my bookmark. So that's all I can really show you. I finished book 7 this morning, which I think so far is actually probably my least favorite book in the Aeneid. But still making progress, still getting through this. And finally, I actually made a little bit of progress in Words of Radiance. I only read 2 chapters this morning, so you're not going to see a difference because it was only about 30 pages. But I at least got something read. So, I'm bound and determined I'm going to get through this book by the end of the month. And then I just realized I forgot to grab a book, so give me a second, I have to go get it. Although before I mention the other book, I should probably also mention, because this is mostly a vlog for the Back to Hogwarts and Shake Timber Readathon. This one is for the Hogwarts Readathon, and this is the 4th prompt, which is a book... no, this is the 5th one. So this is the prompt for a book featuring a secret society or an uprising. And there are actually several uprisings in this book. I was mostly focused on the one by Henry VII, but there's an uprising by Edward IV. Actually, there's 2 uprisings by Edward IV. There's one by his brother George, there's one by his brother Richard, and then there's Henry VII. So there's a lot of uprisings in this book, so it very much counts for that prompt. All right, and then last night I started Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. I only read 1 chapter, so I'm not very far in at all. Don't have a whole lot of thoughts on this one so far, but this is for the Chamber of Secrets prompt, which is to read a book with a secret in the plot or in the title. And it's a murder mystery, so I know there's going to be secrets in this book. All right, so those are all of the reading updates. At this point in the day, I don't know what else I'm going to get done. I'm still finishing up school with the kids, but other than that, I'm not sure. I have been trying to get some work done around the house, like some cleaning done, because I don't know about anybody else, but when it gets to this time of year where we're coming into fall, I really find myself wanting to do a lot of decluttering. I feel like in the spring, I want to do more cleaning because, we've tracked in all this snow and dirt and mud and whatever all through the winter season. And so I just want to get the house cleaned. But in the fall, I feel like I always want to just declutter. And I think a lot of it is because as we're coming into fall and winter, it means we're going to be spending more time in the house. And if I'm going to have to spend more time in the house, I don't want to deal with all the clutter. The bad thing is, anytime I go through the house and declutter, in a way, I feel like I get rid of a lot of stuff by how much stuff I cart from the different rooms in the house to our basement, and then from our basement to wherever they're going to go. But then as I look around the house afterwards, I never feel like I make that much of a dent. So, not really sure how it's going to go, but I'm very much getting into a cleaning mood where I just want to clean out all of the excess stuff. I just get tired of junk. So, let me know if you're that way too, or if you're more of a spring cleaning person. But that's probably what I'm going to be working on today. And I'll probably, if the kids are around, I won't. But if the kids are playing somewhere and I can, I'll probably be listening to the audiobook for Words of Radiance while I work. So I'll still make some progress on something. But right now my focus needs to be more on getting the house cleaned up and a bit decluttered. Well, welcome to the end of the vlog. I know I said I was basically going to have this vlog for the entire month of September, but I realized at some point that 3 weeks worth of footage was going to be a lot to get through in a very short amount of time. So I'm actually going to split this up into 2 vlogs. They'll be about a week and a half long each, but part 2 will cover the rest of the month of September. So I was calling this my Back to Hogwarts in Shaktember reading vlog, but I don't feel like I got a whole lot of reading done for the readathons. However, I did finish Words of Radiance last night. Finally, I finished the book. I don't even feel like I know what to say at this point. I really enjoyed the book. There were a lot of twists and stuff that came at the end. A couple of them I kind of saw coming. Others I did not. But overall, really enjoyed this book. However, I do want to go into some spoilers with this book. So if you haven't read this book, there will be timestamps down below where you can skip ahead. Or I will have a symbol up here on the screen so you can mute the video if you would rather do that. So, the twist that I saw coming. The first one was Syl. Because, I'm sorry, Syl was just too big of a character to just be gone for good. And also the fact that she was one of the pins in the Year of Sanderson boxes. Yeah, I kind of knew somehow she was going to be coming back. Yasna was another one. For the same reason. I don't know if she was in the Year of Sanderson box, but she is a figurine, if I remember correctly, that you can purchase. So I kind of figured if she's still featured in the Stormlight memorabilia, then she's probably not gone after book 2. So those 2 I kind of saw coming. Wasn't too surprised by them. Renarin being a Knight Radiant, I didn't see it coming in. I called it before it happened, but it didn't surprise me that he was. It actually explained a lot. And I'm going to say right now, if you've not read this book or Warbreaker, skip ahead, mute the video, something, go away. Don't get spoiled for this. What is Nightblood doing in this series? That was the one part I got to that I just stopped and went, no. It does not need to be in this book. It does not need to be in this series. And why is it given to Szeth of all people? So, those are just some of the thoughts that I had after I finished the book, and I I kind of need to talk to somebody about it, but I don't know anybody in my personal life who's actually read the books. So, if you've read this book, feel free to comment on any of that. I guess the only thing I'll say is if you do want to talk spoilers on this book, please at least note in your comment that there are spoilers, so people reading through the comments don't accidentally get spoiled. Either that, or if you want to private message me on Instagram about any of it, you can do that as well. And then also Sadius. I did not see that coming whatsoever. On one hand, I feel like it's a relief that he's gone because now he can't stir up trouble, but I just feel like this is ultimately going to cause more problems than it solves. We just don't know how yet. I'm not sure what to think of that. Also not sure what to think about the fact that it was Adolin who did it. The other thing, I guess, I'm really curious to see where we go with Shallan's story, because both of the reveals in this book to do with her, the first one with her father, again, kind of like Renarin, it kind of surprised me, kind of didn't. It was still surprising to find out, but at the same time, not completely unexpected. Her mother, however, that I did not see coming. So I'm hoping to get some more information on that, because all we really got is her mother tried to kill her, but we have no idea why. And we have no idea what actually happened in that room. I'm very curious to see where things go in Oathbringer and the rest of the series. I'm not gonna lie, minus Nightblood and Sadius. Those two things at the end of the book. I feel like the book ended on a pretty high note, because we have the Knights Radiant coming back, we have a lot of characters ending up at a really good place, and I'm not gonna lie, that kind of scares me for Oathbringer. And if not Oathbringer, then definitely Rhythm of War, because I feel like we've been kind of going uphill. We've had some downhills, but we've gradually gone uphill. I know the downhill is coming. It's the way series work. So I'm kind of nervous to get to Oathbringer. I will read it. I can guarantee it won't be until next year, at least. But I'm kind of nervous now. We're ending on too high of a note now for it not to go downhill very quickly. Alright, I think those are all of the spoilery thoughts I have on the book. It's a really good book. It's a really good series so far. Really looking forward to continuing it, but there are some things that I did not see coming, and I'm not sure how I feel about them. So, on one hand, I feel like it hasn't been that great of a reading month because I've only finished 4 books. But at the same time, trying to remind myself that 4 or 5 books a month is normally what I average, and we're only halfway through the month, or just over halfway through the month. So I'm really not doing that bad, especially when you consider that one of them was Words of Radiance. Granted, I was most of the way through this book at the beginning of September, but I still finished it, so I'm not doing terrible. It just doesn't feel like a lot. Also, I should probably go ahead and mention that I'm going to try to continue doing these vlogs every month, and these are basically going to replace my monthly wrap-ups. I only have certain times when I can film, and very limited on when those times are. So the more I can do vlogs where I can actually update during the day instead of waiting for those select times, the better. So these are probably going to replace my wrap-ups. I will still probably have some TBR videos. I don't know if they're going to be the full TBR videos like normal or not, at least in the months where there aren't any readathons that I'm doing, but we will see. But these are going to replace the wrap-ups. So if you want further information on the books, I do have links to the books in the description of the video, and I will also have links to my Goodreads reviews where I leave information on what kind of content is in the books, if you're curious about that. So just to recap, I finished The Red Queen by Philippa Gregory. Really enjoyed this book, but I do give fair warning, the point of view character, Margaret Beaufort, is very much an unlikable character. You will not like her whatsoever. But you're not supposed to like her. So, I did enjoy all of the information I got from this. There's a lot of political things going on during the time that this covers, and getting a lot of that information was, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where to hold this and not get a glare. I loved getting all that extra information that I was missing because I'd read the rest of the series, really enjoyed it, but this was just like that last missing piece of the puzzle that I didn't have. So it was really nice to get all of that information and really wrap up this series. So at some point I will have a series review of this. It mostly just depends on my filming schedule. I don't remember for sure when I'm planning to have that come out. I think it's in October. It could be November. I don't remember. We'll see. But I will have a full review of the series coming out at some point. And then obviously Words of Radiance was the last book that I finished. And then I did make progress on 2 other books, although one of them I didn't make much. The first is the Aeneid by Virgil. This one is translated by David West, and so far I am a little over halfway through. I got through book 8, so I have one more book to go and I'll be 3/4 of the way through the book. And obviously I'll be working on this the rest of the month. I'm buddy reading this with Dia, so I will get to the rest of it in part 2, but I'm not done with it yet. The other books that I finished this month are The Secret Book and Scone Society by Ellery Adams, which is the first book in a series of the same title, and I really enjoyed this one. I didn't love it the way so many people did, unfortunately, but I did still think it was a good book. It was a good story. It was, for the most part, a nice, relaxing read, so it's still enjoyable. I would still recommend it, but like I said, unfortunately for me, I didn't personally love it as much as everyone else. The next book that I finished was The Fifth Avenue Story Society by Rachel Hawk, and this one is a standalone. It is a Christian contemporary book about 5 people who randomly, seemingly, get invited to the Fifth Avenue Story Society, and over time, as they get to know each other, they start becoming friends, but then they also have to deal with the pains of their past. And this one I really, really enjoyed. This is probably one of the best Christian contemporaries I personally have read. I'm coming to learn that I don't tend to enjoy contemporary Christian books. I think part of it is I really just am not that much of a straight romance reader. I don't mind romance in my books when it's a subplot, but I don't tend to care for the books where it's the main plot. Or at least I don't tend to enjoy them as much. So, now this one doesn't have a romance as the main plot, it's mostly a friendship story. So it's probably part of the reason I enjoyed it more. But there were a lot of things I thought were well done in the book. My only critique of it would be it wrapped up a little too nice and neat for my liking. I think if it had ended before the epilogue, if the epilogue got cut, I think it would have been spot on perfect for me. But there were just some things that wrapped up a little too nice and neat. And I like a little bit more ambiguity with the end of my books. I don't like literally knowing this is how everyone's life wrapped up. I like it being left open to maybe things worked out, maybe they didn't. So that would be my only criticism, I guess, of the book. Other than that, I really enjoyed it and thought it was really well done. And then the last book I started, but that's as far as I've gotten, and that is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Satanto. And I've only read the first chapter so far, so I don't have much to say on this one, but I will obviously be continuing this one in part 2 of my September vlog. So, as far as Shaktember, I did not get any Shakespeare books read in this video, so this is mostly a Back to Hogwarts video, I guess you could say. For Back to Hogwarts, the Red Queen counted for, the 5th prompt, which is for a book featuring an uprising, and this one features several uprisings, actually. So this one very much counted for that. Those are all the books that I finished so far in the month of September. Unfortunately, only one of them for sure counted towards the Back to Hogwarts Readathon, although the Aeneid does also count. This is for the 7th prompt, which is a book featuring a battle. So it will count for it. It just doesn't count yet. And Vera Wong is my in real life book club pick for September, so I need to read this one anyway, but it is also the one I was going to use for the second prompt. I am working on books that are part of the Readathon, just unfortunately that's not most of the books that I actually finished so far in September. So that is all I have for you guys in this video. I will have a part 2 coming out because I'm rearranging my schedule a little bit because of dividing this vlog into 2 parts, so I don't know if they're going to come out close together or if they're going to actually be a week apart, so we will see. I'll let you guys know in the description which it ends up being, but let me know what you have been reading in the month of September that you've really been enjoying, or if there's any books you're not enjoying. You can let me know that as well if you would like to rant about them. Other than that, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you later.